They're going to Reyes, and that's what they're going to do, Joe.
I thought Danny would go very far because he knew how to handle a basketball. He was intelligent.
He enjoyed playing ball. Always at a game, teaching the little kids how to dribble and all that.
Rashawn got into everything. He was beautiful in school. Went to all his games, cheered him on.
Deshaun Moore with the steal.
Keyshawn had that military thing about him. You know, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Reyes takes it to the hole.
You so focused, I can backstrain over your team. It's your move. I was raised in the ghetto.
Well, this is where I grew up. New Brighton, Jersey Street, Staten Island, New York.
Like many others, Danny Reyes grew up in a tough neighborhood.
You know, it's the hood, you know.
I knew Danny for like 15 years. We all grew up in a real tough neighborhood. Like, a lot of friends that we grew up with, our dad are in jail.
Many of my friends, by the time we reached high school, were going to different paths. They was selling drugs. They felt those were the only options they had. Basketball kept me in that straight line, kept me interested in school because I knew that if I messed up in school, I wasn't going to be allowed to play on the team.
I believe that he could have had a great career. I thought Danny could have perhaps even wound up in the NBA. He had the discipline. He was coachable. He had a great work ethic. And attitude and work ethic are the main ingredients.
I didn't have many options, but at least I knew that if I continued to play ball, do well in school, I had an opportunity to go to a place of higher learning, get a scholarship, and get out of my neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? I knew that was my out.
He was a great kid. He's basically my first son. He lived with me. I gave him discipline, little chores to do in the house. Introduced him to his first little basketball league. I used to coach the pro-am teams in New York City, and he would be my water boy from an early age, like about 7, 8 years old. And he always enjoyed being around the players, and they enjoyed being around him too.
I was playing with some of the top players in the city, Stephon Marbury's and Felipe Lopez and them. And I mean, I knew, if they were considered like the best in the country, I knew that I was amongst them, and I knew that basketball could take me to other places. My dreams were to get my degree, to finish college, to have a strong career, to play professional ball, to travel the world playing ball. I have a lot of friends that I grew up playing that are playing overseas, and I was, just as good or better than. So, that was always my focus. That was always my goal.
Well, St. Nicholas is my birthplace. I love Harlem. I love St. Nick. This is where I grew up, St. Nick houses. Yeah, this is what I used to call my private workout facility. I used to climb this fence right here, hold on to the wall, throw my basketball over and climb down. A lot of ball players that I know and respected played here. Dr. J played here, Tiny Archibald, a lot of upcoming basketball players played here. So growing up here was great for me because it allowed me to play the game that I love and to grow as a person, despite the environment.
When he was younger, Jermaine wasn't necessarily focused on basketball. At a critical stage in his life, he was reached out to by both a high school administrator and an NBA legend.
I think it was more playful than anything else, like the class clown, so to speak. But you really saw what he was like here, and that's just an all-around nice kid, And so I just took him under my wing.
She gave me that ultimatum that, I was kind of out of here, and then I my blessing and my angel in disguise came through the door, Tiny Archibald.
Nate Tiny Archibald rose above the streets of the South Bronx and into a career in the NBA, eventually landing in the Hall of Fame. It was Archibald who helped teach Jermaine both about the game of basketball and the game of life.
He basically pulled me out of the principal's office and took me into the gym, and he introduced the game of basketball to me and what it can provide for me. You know, not just provide for me, but what it can do, you know, tomorrow. And I love him for that.
Led by Archibald's influence, Jermaine's passion became evident both on and off the court.
I just had an obligation to wanting to provide for my family. Then the love of basketball came second. It was more inspiring for me to put a smile on my mom's face instead of a frown, because there's nothing worse than a mother with a broken heart. I was on my way to giving her a broken heart on the path that I was leading into. But the game of basketball inspired me to kind of like want to give her a better life.
Well, I grew up here in the Bronx. This neighborhood over here, which is Morris Senior Houses. These are projects. Pretty much it is what it is. We all lived here. There's my brother, my little cousin. This used to be my old room when I was a little kid. Me and my brother shared this room. Every morning we used to go out back, because there's courts back there in the back of the building, and practice at 8 o'clock in the morning every day.
And he always tried to help teach the other children. And he was a very bright child in school.
He was beautiful in school. Only had one problem out. He played hooky once. He got caught and put his own self on punishment. I told him I was going to put him on punishment. He said he'd be up. He told me, well, I won't watch TV, I won't play my game, I won't play basketball for a month. I said, sounds good to me, because I was only giving you 2 weeks.
It was that kind of character that endeared Rashawn to a man he regularly played ball with on the playgrounds of New York, legendary jazz musician Wynton Marsalis.
I looked up to him, even though he was younger than me, because I respected so much his integrity. And there's no nonsense. He's very straightforward and honest. The feeling I get when I speak about him is so full because of who he is as a man and who he was. It's not because of his game. A lot of kids have game. It's because of who he is as a man, what he represents, the humanity of the man.
My dream was to actually take basketball and make it a career. That was my dream. It wasn't even something I hoped. I can't even say it was a dream. It's something I just felt that was more reality.
My parents, my father is retired military, Air Force, U.S. Coast Guard. He did like 30 years. My mother's a correction officer who's about to retire.
We lived on Gummerstown for about 10 years. My husband was in the Air Force.
At an early age, Keyshawn Moore was instilled with a sense of discipline and responsibility.
Life on the streets, I didn't grow up in the streets. I grew up on military bases. The streets never really affected me. I knew it was right and wrong. So, and I definitely wasn't gonna get in trouble because I had to face my father.
Keyshawn was very laid back, quiet. But he was quiet and he was very obedient, always. He's just a quiet child.
I lived on the Governor's Island, it was a military base, and in New York. So I had to take one ferry to the city and take another ferry to Staten Island early in the morning. I was the only basketball player. So while they were going home, I had to stay for practice, obviously. And I wouldn't get home till probably 7:30, 7:45. And then, I really didn't have any time. I had to do my homework, eat, and then I would hit the rack.
He enjoyed it. He really did. And he was good. He was very good.
Keyshawn's talent and discipline won him a scholarship to North Carolina Central. In the spring of 1998, Keyshawn would invite Danny Reyes, Jermaine Grant, and Rashawn Brown to attend a basketball workout on campus. It would be a trip the boys would never forget.
It wasn't a spur of the moment. It was planned months ahead.
Keyshawn came and got me. Then we picked up Jermaine afterwards.
We went to Queens and we picked Danny's bags up from his sister's house.
I was in the front passenger seat. Keyshawn was driving, and Jermaine and Rayshawn were in the back. They ended up starting to fall asleep at that point.
As the four headed down the rain-soaked New Jersey Turnpike, a state trooper would pull alongside of them just south of exit 8.
I saw the troopers and the cop car right beside us, like for at least 3 or 4 minutes, looking inside the car.
I seen the cruiser on my left side. I intentionally did not look at him, and that's when he comes behind me and puts the sirens on. And I knew he wanted me to pull me over.
I didn't think much of it because I guess that's normal, or at least I grew up thinking that's normal. Cops looking in and then moving on.
I was in the middle lane. I couldn't pull over right away, so I probably had to drive before I attempted to try to pull over.
Keyshawn was going at the speed limit, so I think we was gonna get pulled over. And then we did get pulled over.
I pulled over to the shoulder. I was nervous. I'm looking for my wallet. I thought I put the car in park, but it was actually in reverse. So when I pulled my foot off the brake, obviously it rolled back, it hit the cruiser. And the police officers, they break the passenger side window with his baton, and basically puts his 9mm in there.
Pretty much that's when all hell broke loose.
"13 shots fired, 4 lives changed forever."
Next thing I remember, man, was glass flying, Keyshawn screaming, Jermaine screaming.
I thought we was getting carjacked. I didn't think it was the cops until the arm of the state trooper reached into the car to open fire on Danny. He actually watched Danny surrender his hands to the air with no weapons, no resistance, and pause for a second and open fire. And that put in my mindset that we was gonna die.
Once I seen that barrel, I ducked. The car was in reverse. It rolled back into the highway. We actually got hit by another oncoming car, and Danny jumps in the driver's seat.
I start yelling, "Please don't shoot, the car's not in park." So I show my hands, and he points his gun at me, and next thing you know, he just starts shooting. So I just cover up like this, and I believe that's when I get shot a few times. I'm hearing all types of other stuff, shots in the back, some of the guys screaming in the back. When I finally, I guess, snapped out of it, and I looked up, and I realized that the van has been rolling the whole time. The car is literally rolling into the turnpike.
I tried to open the door and get out, and the cops were actually still shooting at us when the car was rolling. When I tried to open the door on my side, that's when we got hit by another car, and then we just rolled into a ditch. And then from there, that's when I opened the door. But as soon as I opened the door to jump out, I happen to look up the hill, and I see all them cops. And then they come running down the hill talking about, "Freeze, put your hand up, get on the floor, put your face down on the floor."
The trooper came to my door, opened it up, and pulled me right out. So as I get pulled out, my sneaker comes off. That's when my ankle gets sprained. He decides to handcuff my right arm, which is the one that I'm feeling all the pain from. So he handcuffs it and pulls it from behind. At that moment, I thought I wasn't gonna live.
They came, snatched us out the car, threw the handcuffs. I'm like, I got shot, I don't care. So what? Yelling back and forth, egging us like they don't care. Keyshawn, like, my brother got shot, he's screaming, can you help you? Helping him. He like, no, I'm not helping nobody, stay right here, y'all under arrest.
I'm lying, on my face on that ditch, on the mud. It's like the longest wait of my life. I start to lose a lot of blood. I start to feel a lot weaker.
I was the only one that remained in the car because I was pinned. My legs was caught. It was caught in a chair. They tried to do everything. Tried to jackknife me out, cop choke me out. But they realized they couldn't move me. So what they did, they handcuffed me from behind over the seat.
They finally get the handcuffs off of me to roll me over and put me on the stretcher. Once I get on the stretcher and they start walking me up the hill, that's when I got to see Jermaine. He was just like, both arms like this, like laid back. I'm like, shit. In my mind, I'm just thinking like, damn, that boy done died.
There's so many emotions that went through me that night. You know, I thought about the past, I thought about the present, I thought about not having a future.
Despite the seriousness of the boys' injuries, some officers at the scene made it difficult for emergency workers to do their jobs.
So when they put me on the stretchers there, the ambulance lady says to the cop, take the handcuffs off. He said, okay. He took the handcuffs off. Then he cuffs this arm. So I say, yo, why you cuffing the arm that got shot? Why don't you cuff my left arm? Well, this the arm I want to cuff. I said, oh, you one of those people. So then after that, we riding, and as we riding, I'm watching him, he watching me, and we watching each other. And I'm just looking at him, but only if he knew what I was thinking.
As the others were transported to an area hospital, Keyshawn Moore, the only one of four not struck by the bullets, was taken to a nearby precinct for questioning.
They took me to get interrogated, and they just hit me with questions. Different questions, the same questions, posing them differently, trying to, they want to see me slip up. But, I didn't slip up. And he started to see, hey, I'm articulate, I'm talking to him, I'm not no street thug. They knew, they had made a mistake.
Keyshawn would soon be released. He received tickets for speeding and driving with a revoked license. He was not charged with any crimes against the two troopers.
The next morning we woke up and I was under arrest still, handcuffed to the bed with a stupid ass cop sitting next to me. And then we turn on the news and it says, 4 gentlemen on the turnpike had a shootout with New Jersey State Police.
I waited like for 7-8 hours before I saw him. They took me inside the room to see if that was my brother, because he was all swollen, his head, his shoulders. It didn't look like him.
My daughter called me. She told me that he was in the hospital, but she don't explain me nothing about what happened.
He told me I didn't do it, and they just shot me for no reason. And right there and then I knew he was innocent.
The initial reports allege that the boys tried to run down the state troopers. Police Chief Carl Williams held a press conference and he stated that the van was clocked at 74 miles per hour by a mounted radar gun and that the van moved quickly towards the troopers when parked. He referred to the boys several times as suspects. Finally, he was quoted as saying that the 4 were not college students, they were unemployed.
When you hear something like that on the news, where 4 kids tried to run over the police officers, you would think that you would hear something pertaining to weapons or drugs. And they didn't mention anything about weapons or drugs. So I have a feeling right now that they're plotting to protect these police officers because they made a big mistake.
Ralph Menard knew the boys' troubles were just beginning, so he hired local attorney David Ironman.
While these kids didn't have records, they initially had to put out the story that they were almost run over, but that's what they do. And that's your fight when you take on the governmental agencies like that you're gonna run into the power they have with the media, of course, the money behind them if they want, and the ability to make any story they want appear in their favor. After I went down to the hospital, I began trying to figure out how we were going to attack the conduct of the troopers, to begin to show that these troopers, as well as the whole New Jersey State Police, were predominantly used race as a means to make arrests and stop vehicles.
Racial profiling is a crime. Police harassment is a crime.
Reverend Al Sharpton's headquarters was right up the block from where we lived. And my mother and father pretty much went over to his National Action Network and, pleaded with him to see about the situation.
There was something about the urgency of how he spoke that made me stop. He started begging me to look into it. And I said that staff will take care of it, we'll get back to you. He says, you don't understand, my son, his friends in a hospital in Jersey, and they're gonna try to make them look like drug dealers or something. I need you to do something right away. And I actually saw tears swelling up in his eyes. And it moved me because he was a father, not even a mother, that was that upset. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll hold a press conference and I will call for an investigation. I can't say that they are victims yet, but I can say we need an impartial investigation.
We are outraged that it would have to come to this point before anyone seriously looks into the allegations of profiling on the turnpike.
Governor Christine Todd Whitman originally defended the actions of the troopers and denied the existence of racial profiling by the New Jersey State Police.
I prepared approximately a 25-page document requesting everything under the sun, from the troopers' clothes to the radar device that supposedly was used. It was at this point that Mr. Giroux closed the door in the barracks and looked at me and said, I'm going to investigate this and let the chips fall where they may. He disclosed to me that there was no radar in the trooper's vehicle, even though the New Jersey State Police had released to the press that they had been clocked on radar. And we began talking about making arrangements to examine the van that the kids were in.
As Iron Man continued his aggressive pursuit of the truth, the boys remained hospitalized, recovering from their injuries.
I got shot 6 times altogether. I got shot here. Most of my bones were shattered. They had to put a metal plate here to join my bone together. Here, they had to put another metal plate from right there. I got shot there, and this one, it's in my stomach over here. But it's like in an area that's too dangerous to go get it. You see that one? That one, I guess I was like an inch away from probably being paralyzed.
My knee, my left leg. Just little fragments of my knee. You can tell. My right arm. And the bullet is here. Everybody think that's a muscle. The right side of my back, my ribs. I got just glass shattered.
While Danny Reyes and Jermaine Grant remained hospitalized, Rashawn Brown was the first to be released.
I remember getting shot in my arm, and I don't remember getting shot in my side at all. Me with basketball, that was my life, and then after I got shot, you kind of took a piece of me. Because it's still a question that I go through every day is why I got shot. Nobody can answer it. You really can't.
Though Keyshawn Moore was not physically injured in the shooting, he had his own wounds that needed to heal.
I felt terrible. It was a long stretch that I felt guilty. I just hibernated. I really didn't go anywhere. I'd turn on the TV and I'd see my face in the news. And it was just crazy time in my life.
How much courage these 4 young men had. First, the fact they lost almost their life. When I saw them in the hospital, they were fighting for their life. When it was clear they would be stable, it was also clear that they would never be able to pursue their dreams. They wanted to be Michael Jordan. They lived for basketball. And then to come to the reality that the people that I thought, you thought, they thought would protect them and be proud of them are the ones that tried to kill them for no reason.
We call on the governor of the state and others to come forward immediately and deal with this issue.
While Sharpton and other minority leaders continue to speak out against racial profiling, Iron Man's investigation would uncover damaging evidence against the state troopers.
We then get an opportunity to examine the vehicles involved. Bad move by them, bad move. I sent down a friend of mine, Don Nessison, who is the accident investigation detective for the New York State Police for 27 years. At that scene, it became very obvious that the story that they had put out was not correct. That the way that the gunshots came into the vehicle were not as the vehicle was coming at the troopers, and much more importantly, Mr. Nessison said, I wanted to see the troopers' vehicle. The New Jersey State Police vehicle was a brand new vehicle that was used that night, only had less than 500 miles on it, so it was very easily examinable to determine what, if any, contact that occurred with it that night since it was so brand new. The first thing Mr. Nessison did was jump right under the front of the car to see what the impact on the bumper showed. Donnie at that time told me less than 5 miles, probably 2 or 3 miles by his eye shot. They knew they had a problem because this vehicle, they had issued this press release showing that this vehicle had been smashed into by the kids and basically had been knocked around so much that you thought the car would have been destroyed, and it wasn't.
The media pendulum began to swing towards the truth. Pulitzer Prize-winning writer Jim Dwyer of the New York Daily News was the first to write an article revealing the practices of the New Jersey State Troopers.
Boom, there it was. You had about 3-4 days of stories now that turned it around because the kids were guilty that first weekend of trying to run over these 2 police officers. But once the truth was exposed, the whole public knew, hey, they messed up.
I called for a march on the New Jersey Turnpike, and we actually took buses out there and closed the turnpike. The troopers had said that the only thing that ever closed that turnpike was the hurricane. But we closed the turnpike for those 4 young men and said that we wanted the world to know what happened.
As things began to unfold, Iron Man understood the national ramifications of this incident.
There came a point when, speaking with Ralph and Jermaine's family members down at the hospital, they made me aware that Mr. Cochran's office was going to be contacted.
David told me at that point, hey Ralph, this case is such a big case that I'll step aside to bring in a nationally acclaimed lawyer.
Johnny Cochran, attorney for 2 of the victims, says budding basketball careers ended that night. He says they'll seek a substantial amount for physical and emotional suffering. Cochran also calls for changes in policing across the country.
We don't paint all police with the same brush, but we have to change the culture so that the bad police fear the good police and not vice versa.
I said, David, if this is the biggest case of your life and you're willing to do that, we'll bring in a nationally acclaimed lawyer, but I don't want to sever you from that team. You must stay part of that team, and that was the best move I ever did. They had the big names, but I know David was the one who did so much of the investigation.
If you were to look at the actual statistics, you would see that basically 90 to 100% of the time, the group of troopers who worked out of that barracks, in particular, these troopers pulled over nobody but Hispanics and blacks. As we further went on, actually, there was internal findings by the New Jersey State Police of the same thing, that basically 100% of some of the barracks only searched vehicles of minorities.
One of the things we suggested is, why don't you talk to the other people who these 2 officers interacted with that very day? And when they looked at the log sheet, and the log sheet was they were required to fill out, and they were supposed to fill out when they stopped anybody, the race of those people, the make and model of the car, and the license plate and address. And the last interaction, the last stop they had before they went to these 4 young men were these 2 guys from Trenton, New Jersey. And they had their address, and it listed them as 2 white men living in Trenton, New Jersey. And they knocked on the door of the house, and an African-American male, very dark complexion, answered the door, and they said, we're looking for Mr. Smith, and Mr. Brown. And they go, I'm Mr. Smith, and he's Mr. Brown. And they're 2 dark complexioned black men. And the investigators, holy cow, they were lying about this.
Over 3 weeks had passed since the night of the shooting, and scathing evidence of racial profiling continued to surface at an alarming rate. Meanwhile, Danny and Jermaine were finally released from the hospital, and all 4 boys began the long, painful road to recovery.
My dreams were shattered, and now I had to set new goals and a new plan for myself.
The concern was whether or not he'd ever be able to use his arm normally again. His nerves were not functioning. He was not able to rotate his hand. The skin graft had not taken yet. And I think that he had a really hard road of recovery. He had a lot of hard physical therapy. It was going to take a lot of hard work to get them to a level of having a normal life. And we weren't as much concentrating on the return to athletic ability as it was to have a normal life.
When they told me that it's a great possibility that I won't be able to use my arm to play competitive sports again, I was shocked. My heart dropped.
A lot of athletes identify themselves by the sport that they play, and the way that they succeed at their sports really gives them a self-esteem. And when an athlete first understands he's no longer participating in the sport, he doesn't understand who he is anymore because he's identified himself as an athlete for so long.
After I got shot, it's just that I actually went to a big depression state to where I didn't care about anything really. My life felt like it was over.
He wasn't happy. He closed everybody out. He didn't try to participate in nothing. He didn't conversate with nobody. He had a lot of nightmares.
I walk around all day, every day with the scars on my body, with the agony and pain in the mind.
I was just like, I was in a daze. I was, I just, like I said, I just didn't understand.
He felt that he should have got shot also. He explained to me several times, like, he probably would feel a little bit, a little bit at ease if he would have took a bullet too, because he feel like we took too many and he didn't take any.
I had to look deep inside myself and, really get to find out who I was.
God had a different plan for us, obviously. I was blessed enough to be alive and just take it from there. It affects me sometimes when I have to go through, further I go along in life, the more difficult it's going to be to do some of the things that I want to do.
It took a whole lot out of him, especially when he knew that he couldn't, really play again like he wanted to. Because he used to always say that, "Mom, you work too hard. When I make it, I'm gonna sit you down."
Now I know why our past leaders like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King took it so seriously, because there is a situation, no matter how we choose to ignore it, it will surface and smack us in the face one day. And it did.
I'm screaming no justice, no peace, and I'm playing for keeps. Constantly I go to war with the beast, huh? I'm playing for keeps, but look what justice has done to me. I'm screaming no.
As time passed, the health of the boys improved, and the investigation of racial profiling against the state of New Jersey progressed. In February of 1999, State Police Chief Carl Williams made inflammatory racial remarks to a local newspaper and was forced to resign. A grand jury was assembled for a full investigation. A reenactment of the incident on the New Jersey Turnpike confirmed that the boys' stories were true and that the officers' shots were unprovoked. Troopers Hogan and Kenna were both indicted for falsifying records. Then, nearly a full year after the night of the shooting, Governor Christine Todd Whitman dropped the bombshell.
Look what justice has done to me.
Standing arm in arm, the four young men shot at by New Jersey State Police announced they are suing the state.
This case, if there was a picture in the dictionary by racial profiling, this case would be there. These young men would be there. This is that case.
Every once in a while, a story comes along, and it's just the right time. Something has hit critical mass, and that was this case, because it was such a powerful instance of racial profiling. These four young men who were wonderful people that were shot, almost killed. These officers who had a history of profiling themselves and were emblematic of all that was wrong. And frankly, the initial cover-up of the New Jersey officials. This was one of those cases that actually made an imprint upon American consciousness with respect to the whole issue of driving while black, racial profiling.
As a result of the incident, the state of New Jersey issued a mandate requiring mounted radar guns on all state trooper vehicles, as well as cameras to record every traffic stop.
They brought in new commandants and they brought in the new colonels, and we're going to make all these changes. On the top sheet of the New Jersey State Police Academy class is, tell me who you're related to on the New Jersey State Police. And the vast majority of those candidates all are related to somebody with the New Jersey State Police. How do you change the atmosphere? How do you change the view? Be rest assured, they've been told, hey, this is the way it is out there. This is what you got to do. This is how you got to do it. Not going to change their conduct until you start changing who are those police officers.
Trooper James Kenna, son of a New Jersey policeman, filed his own lawsuit against the state claiming he was unfit for duty the night of the shooting.
1 month prior to this incident, Jim Kenna, on a stop on the turnpike in the middle of the day, was assaulted by a driver, knocked to the ground. His true car was stolen. He was shot at, and ultimately this person was arrested. But 1 month prior, he was in a very traumatic situation on the turnpike.
And immediately he's put back on the road. And the reason that's done is so that the police officer never doubts his actions on the street usually. And they usually immediately say, justified shooting, get back on the road. You know, have your 2 days off, go see the psychologist, you're good, you're fine, good, boom. And I think that's wrong.
On October 12, 1999, just 5 days after Kenna filed his suit, a press conference was called to announce the findings of the grand jury.
This afternoon, the grand jury investigating the shootings that occurred in April 1998 near exit 7A of the New Jersey Turnpike concluded its deliberations. The grand jury indicted troopers James Kenna and John Hogan, each of attempted murder, 1 count, and 2 counts each of aggravated assault. The grand jury is essentially accusing the 2 troopers of purposefully attempting to murder Daniel Reyes, who's one of the passengers in the van, and they are accused, Hogan is accused of the aggravated assault of Jermaine Grant, one of the passengers in the van. Trooper Kenna is accused of the aggravated assault of Rayshawn Brown, another of the passengers in the van, and they're both accused of the aggravated assault of Daniel Reyes.
As the boys' health continued to improve, they would take an active role in the civil rights movement. In June of 2000, they took part in a march on Washington to address the issues of racial profiling and police brutality.
We're not some drug traffickers. We're not some people slick and hustling. We're the children of warriors. We're Harriet Tubman's children. We're Sojourner Truth's children. We're Martin Luther King's children. We're Malcolm's children. Don't mishandle us. Don't misuse us. Redeem the dream. Redeem the dream. Redeem the dream.
When the Rev asked us to do things with him, I took that as an honor, especially when he asked us to do things that wasn't necessarily just about our case. It was just about racial profiling, police brutality, and justice as a whole.
The thing that got to a lot of us around the country is to hear 4 young men doing exactly what we tell them to do, to be clean, to be athletes, to be positive. And they almost lost their lives just because of the color of their skin. It became something that was not only a classic case of racial profiling, but hit the core of our community, Black, Latino, Asian, and white. Because if the young men that you're telling don't be negative, don't be into drugs, don't be into crime, and they are the targets of law enforcement anyway, it was no longer about the 4 of them. I saw my daughters, everybody started seeing their kids, saying we can't win if when they do what's right, they're still a target. We are here today in light of the fact that President Bush himself on last Tuesday in the State of the Union address said that he is willing to reach out to end racial profiling.
Danny and Jermaine would also meet with Senators Hillary Clinton and John Corzine, as well as an assembly of the black members of Congress in an effort to pass legislation against racial profiling.
We're trying to get some type of reform, some type of legislative sign as far as bringing federal charges to all racial profiling incidents.
Everybody could agree that there is a problem, but everybody can also agree that it's a way to solve this problem.
While the boys were trying to influence legislators in Washington, their attorneys were dealing with administration officials in New Jersey.
They had tried to settle this case from the very beginning. They had tried to settle the civil case with the criminal case many a times. You know what I'm saying? They tried to give us money so everything could just be, washed away and we just walk. And we never took the money. We never took the money because we wanted to get justice.
I believe it was settle the case with the kids, to a degree pay them off, and then we'll wipe that criminal case under the rug a little bit.
The only reason we said yes was because they said, okay, you can settle the civil case, but the criminal case is going to continue, and we're going to get a court date, and we're going to go to court, and we're going to have a trial. And we was like, all right, we're fine with that, because that means that we're going to get our day in court.
The boys settled the civil case for a record $12.9 million. The focus of attention was shifted now to the criminal case, but their day in court would never come.
There's a major development in the case of two New Jersey state troopers involved in the Turnpike shooting that sparked charges of racial profiling. Today, a judge has dismissed all of the serious charges.
There were tears and hugs in the courtroom after the judge announced that attempted murder charges and aggravated assault charges against suspended troopers John Hogan and James Kenna were being dismissed.
First of all, sir, I'd like to ask you if you understand the term racial profiling.
Yes, sir. Minorities were emphasized and highlighted as those most likely to be carrying drugs. If you wanted to satisfy the demand for drug arrest, we were led to believe as young troopers that we had to stop minorities.
You have agreed to enter a plea of guilty to a charge of hindering apprehension, a charge drawn up by the Attorney General without the approval of the grand jury.
I understand.
The state of New Jersey would offer James Kenna and John Hogan a plea bargain in exchange for a guilty plea to obstruction of justice. They would lose their jobs in law enforcement and would be issued a fine of $280. Neither man would serve a single day in prison.
Basically, we told them at the last minute that the troopers were going to plead to the malfeasance of filing false reports rather than their actual conduct they did that night involving the shooting.
When they gave him the plea bargain, yeah, it became history. The first time that troopers or any police in the United States admitted to racial profiling. So yeah, it was a win for Jersey. They become the first state that had, that admitted to profiling and had troopers admit that they profiled. But, we didn't get justice.
You're saying that, we weren't criminals and what we were trying to do. They should have did sometime. Even if it was 2 to 5, something.
There was no real justice, sir. Honestly speaking, all they did was just give us money. The officers got off.
Settlements don't make justice. It just makes comfort for the people who wants to ignore justice.
I ain't happy. I ain't really care for the money neither, to be honest. I'ma take it, but I don't care for it because I didn't work for it. This money, I'm making it work for me now. I'm happy that I got it, but the way I got it, no.
Money can't give me back anything. At the end of the day, I was preparing myself to earn money. If they would have went to trial and they would have won and they would have got acquitted in a trial, I would not be as bitter. I would not be as mad because that means that they proved their case. But my thing was, there's no way they was going to prove their case. There's no way that they was going to win in court because when the evidence would have came out, I don't see one jury that would let them go free.
They should have went to jail.
I think this story is real important. And it's real important because in too many communities of color around the country, they still live it every day. You still know, no matter how much money you make,
no matter how much education you have, they're gonna treat you differently when they stop you. And until we can live knowing that we're gonna be treated the same, the story's gotta be told. I think their dreams were replaced with a bigger dream, that they was gonna score for humanity and become real champions in that cause. Even though they didn't choose to do it, they seem to be chosen for it.
We all had game, and truth would have been told if we'd had a chance to prove it. Unfortunately, we didn't make it. I want those that's out there training these young rookies coming up in the law enforcement not to corrupt their mind and say those of a darker color shaded skin have issues.
This is wrong. It's wrong, no matter how you put it. Whether you stereotyping religion or race, it's wrong. The more awareness you bring to it, you know, the more it'll become, you know, silent for tomorrow's generation.
You know, a lot of laws got changed, you know, throughout the country. We got as far as we could. You know, I guess, you know, as far as they let us. And, you know, time, you know, hopefully, you know, racial profiling will be eradicated. It's systematic, and it's something that's been going on for years and years and years and years. And that's hard to change. What those two troopers did to us that night didn't stop us from living the lives the best way we could.
We have come a long ways, but it's still a long road to go. You know, sometimes incidents like this happen and people don't have the support, you know what I'm saying? And they go through it and they gotta get better on their own and they gotta get a lawyer on their own, and they really don't get near the justice that we got. So, you know, I think because of that, there is a responsibility for us to do the right thing, and if we need to, you know, give back, we should give back. I wish that those troopers would have thought about what they were doing that night and we could have just continued on that journey, but that's not the way it happened. That's not how God, I guess, wanted it for us.